Good evening, everyone. My name is Benjamin, and welcome back to That Time. And today we are talking about that time the House decided a presidential election. Thankfully, this is the only time that has happened in our nation's history. Hopefully, it will never happen again. So, the year is 1824. James Monroe is finishing up his second term in office and has declined to run for a second term. And 4 candidates decide to run for the election for the presidency in 1824. And of course, this was at the tail end of the era of good feeling. So, going back to episode 1 of this series, the era of good feelings was a time when America really only had one political party. As such, all 4 candidates in this election were of the same party. They were Andrew Jackson. If you wanted, I could have found an actual photo of Jackson, but we'll stick with this one because it's a little bit kinder to him. Andrew Jackson was a hero of the War of 1812. He was a well-known Tennessee politician. He grew up during the Revolution and a little bit before that. He even had wounds from a British officer for essentially refusing to comply with orders. Pretty much, he was a force of nature. We've also met Andrew Jackson previously in this series because he was an absolute insane lunatic. His favorite hobby was dueling. And here's John Quincy Adams, who was the other candidate. He was the son of founding father and former president John Adams, who was the first one-term president. He was a well-known lawyer. John Adams, as well as John Quincy Adams, they were both well-known lawyers from Massachusetts. Both were somewhat, and to a much greater extent, John Adams and Quincy, but John Adams was extremely prominent in the Revolution, and John Quincy Adams held some sway in Massachusetts at the very least. He also had a pet alligator, but we don't have to talk about that one. Maybe I'll talk about that sometime. But this is an actual photo of John Quincy Adams. He was old at this point. Moving on, we have Henry Clay, who was another Western, at least at the time, Western politician. He was from Tennessee or Kentucky or North Carolina. I forget which of those 3, but he was from west of the Appalachians. He served a very, very long time in the legislature. He was, of course, a Southerner and pro-slavery, so yeah, I get it. And then you have William H. Crawford. This is the only photo I can find, and he was kind of your generic politician of the day. So he wasn't overly into one issue or another. He was kind of the political center of the nation in some regards. Jackson was a Westerner and a man of the people. Quincy Adams was the establishment. And Henry Clay was the Southerner who decided, whatever, I'll run because I can totally win. In some regards, you have just about everyone modeled in the 2016 election as well, which is kind of funny. I'll let you decide which one's which, but it is kind of fitting if you look at things circling back. So here's the result of the election. Jackson is obviously in green. He won 99 electoral votes, and of the states that actually held popular votes, overall he had 43% of the vote, with 153,000 to John Quincy Adams, 108,000. Of course, Adams came in second in both counts, followed by, hilariously, Henry Clay, despite winning more votes nationwide, won fewer electoral votes. And that will explain the next map that I'm going to show you. So these were the actual results of the presidential election. As you can see, Andrew Jackson had support nationwide, whereas Quincy Adams really only had the support of metro areas in New England and former New Englanders in western states like Illinois, whereas Henry Clay was popular west of the Appalachians and Crawford was kind of not popular anywhere. So the next map I'm going to show you is the House result, because as we know, the Electoral College picks the president, and if the president isn't determined by a majority of electors, the results go to the House. As in, the House makes the decision to vote for who is going to be president, in the Senate, if the vice presidential election is not determined by a majority of electors, decides the vice president. And the vice presidency was actually decided in this election, the presidency was not. So, what happened was the top three candidates in the Electoral College, which means Crawford and not Clay, despite Clay having more popular votes. Crawford, being the smallest of the three, followed by John Quincy Adams, followed by Andrew Jackson. Now, of course, each state gets one vote. This is still true today. So each state had to come to a consent, each state legislature, not state legislature, but each delegation had to come to a consensus on who to vote for. And hilariously, Andrew Jackson actually lost the support of North Carolina somehow, as well as the fact that he was more popular west of the Appalachians, and if you flipped Ohio, Kentucky, Illinois, Missouri, Louisiana, as well as North Carolina back to Jackson, which it more than likely should have gone to Jackson, Jackson probably would have been president. However, Quincy Adams, at least according to Jackson, created and undertook a corrupt bargain in which Quincy Adams would become president if he would essentially pass whatever the legislature decided to pass. Sign into law whatever legislature passed, as well as a few other things, particularly representatives from certain areas would get on Quincy Adams' cabinet, they would fill key roles in his administration, etc., etc. Is there reason to believe this is true? Well, we don't know. No one knows for certain. Whatever it is, Andrew Jackson got his revenge 4 years later. And let me tell you, Andrew Jackson was a force of nature. It didn't matter how good John Quincy Adams was doing. Jackson started running the day he lost the House vote. And he made sure that his people got the word out that Washington, D.C. was corrupt and stole the election from the people. And oh yeah, did it work? Because as we all know, Andrew Jackson won in a landslide. But that's the election of 1828, which is a whole nother story, and I may actually talk about that on Friday, because I think on Friday I'm going to talk about why it's so difficult to beat incumbents, as well as the history of incumbents losing their elections, the reasons for that, and what that means for the future. Just as an update, there will be no video on Monday for the sole reason that I am going to be traveling. And then Wednesday we'll be back to my normal times, which is somewhere around late to mid-afternoon. So back to normal time, as well as back to a more regular schedule and a bit better audio. I'm probably going to be getting a pop filter somewhere in the next couple of weeks just to make sure everything is even more clear. Anyway, I want to say thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy. Bye.